Well, of the period of the Rosenbergs, today, the Rosenbergs are very sentimentalized. They're considered saints by, I think, a considerable portion of the population, those who remember them. The thing is about the Rosenbergs, the history of American communism has been so glamorized and so whitewashed that people really don't understand what American communism was about. They think that American communists were in the vanguard in terms of civil rights, human brotherhood, peace, and there are little tidbits of truth in all this, because American communists were put their bodies on the line for the civil rights movement at a very early stage. But the goal was always something else, which was the interest of the Soviet Union. And they were not rooting for America, they were rooting for Stalin and communism. Now, I came into this milieu after Khrushchev's speech, when he revealed some of the crimes of Stalin. So I had a bird's eye view that was most unusual, because people were leaving the Communist Party in droves, and many were deeply disillusioned. They found their illusions again later in different forms, I would say, in the development of the New Left, which was comprised to a certain extent of the children of the old communists, red diaper babies. But in the period that I was given access to leadership of the party, because there was nobody left, and I was a kid, and they loved me. I was introduced as a representative of the youth, not a youth, but a representative of the youth. I got such a kick out of this, and they treated me so well. I mean, the old ladies, the activists, they gave me food and clothing, socks, money. They would do anything for me because I was young, and everyone else was old. If you were a young communist, you were under 80 by then. And so I was introduced to some of the leading figures. Herbert Aptheca, who was their leading theoretician. He was a scholar about black slave revolts in the South. He was a legitimate scholar, but he was also a fervent Stalinist. And I attended his classes at the Jefferson School before it was torn down. This was the end of everything, you have to understand. And he would have on the blackboard a quote from Bertolt Brecht: "Communism is not a crime. Communism is the end of crime." And he had quotes from Stalin. This is after Stalin was dead. So Herbert Aptheca loved me, and he would show me his manuscripts. I was 12 years old, and he would ask me for my theoretical opinion of these manuscripts. Then he wrote a book called The Truth About Hungary, which was the Soviet Party line that this Hungarian Revolution was basically a fascist revolution. And he asked my opinion of it. I said it was great. I mean, well, I understood very little, but I loved the attention. And this goes into a whole pathology of my family, and I was looking for girlfriends, and very easy access, I was welcomed wherever I went. I was treated like a king. And I met many of these characters. Benjamin J. Davis, who was head of the party. He was a black. He'd been a lawyer in a Scottsboro case. Truly a impressive figure. Some of these people were very impressive. Lost souls, because they had given their souls over to communism. And so Herbert Aptheca introduced me to Ben Davis. I saw Ben Davis at a rally in Harlem after he got out of prison, because many of these, the top tier of leadership, were imprisoned under the Smith Act for a period of time. And if you read left-wing historians, that period was akin to the Gulag. in the Soviet Union or the Nazi concentration camps, although in reality there were people who served brief prison sentences, but there's absolutely no parallel to what was going on in the communist world. So this all leads up to my interest in the Rosenberg case, which intensified as I got older. By the way, to give you another example of how the communists regarded the Soviet Union, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, who was a legendary communist, referred to Stalin as the new Moses. And they weren't kidding. They were not kidding. This is really how they saw things. So that was my early experience. And 20 years later, about 1980, I decided I wanted to write about this. And I wrote a book called Red Love, which is about the Rosenberg case from a serious but satiric point of view, because my aim was to demolish the myth of the saintliness of the Rosenbergs and all the American communists. Not that I disliked them, but I knew what the score was. And, they were part of this Hate America campaign that was so cleverly manipulated by the communists, because the Rosenberg case occurred at the same time as the anti-Semitic trials in Czechoslovakia, the Rudolf Slansky trials, Stalin's rampant anti-Semitism. And so the Rosenberg case was a way for the communists to divert attention from the realities of what was going on in the communist world. So we jumped to 1980, and I began to research my book. And I interviewed everybody under the sun, because I had not grown up during the Depression or World War II, and I truly wanted to understand what motivated these people. People sometimes, as I said, of great humanity and depth, who would give over their lives to such a horrible cause. And so I interviewed I interviewed Communist Party activists. I interviewed people from every point of view and perspective. I interviewed the FBI agents who arrested Julius Rosenberg and Morton Sobel. And I interviewed some of the prosecutors. I interviewed some of the defenders. I interviewed about 50 or 60 people to try to get a sense of the history of this and the mentality of this and what motivated them.
What was on your mind after all this interview? What do you think about this?
Terrible waste. Terrible waste of idealism and good intentions, all pinned on a bloodbath. It's all blood. It's all about the history of a bloodbath, torture, sadism, horrible concentration camps modeled. Stalin's hero was Hitler. We know that now. And I guess Stalin was Hitler's hero. But
you spoke with people who connected, for example, with Soviet spies, with Soviet representatives. What does they say about the Dutch people? Was they so terrible? What were the Soviet people in America?
Well, I wrote in my novel Red Love, which is about the Rosenberg case, as I said. They would. Of course, I invented not to a certain extent, although it was all based on reality, on my interviews. But I had the pickets have signs that said about the Rosenbergs, whatever they did, they didn't do it. You see, the mindset was what spies were doing was good. So it wasn't really spying. They were innocent because They were guilty. I mean, they were working for Stalin. What could be a more beautiful thing in the world? What could be I mean, to them, the spies were the advance guard of the revolution. They were doing the noble work. They were heroes. And much of that mentality remains today because of the revisionism about the Cold War and the New Left, and we've kind of returned to some of that mentality in that spies are not really spies. They're people. They're civil rights activists. They're advanced in their thinking. And what could be better than to topple such an evil empire as the United States? I mean, that mentality has resurfaced in every aspect of our society. It takes new forms, but the hatred of the United States, of democracy, is so deeply inbred that it can't be dislodged. People need to believe that somewhere over the range